This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
It is. I mean, it's about the employee experience internally, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the numerous processes that grow in what's already a busy life and a busy world, and and how do you alleviate the things that you don't actually really need to do, and what doesn't add value, and can you remove things that don't add value? Like, a good question: are they going to cause harm if you remove them? And if they're not, then why have you got them in place?
One of the things I think is bringing people together and sort of feeling connected and like a collective, because I think it's very easy to think, oh, I do this bit and it's too hard to change that. But when you bring everyone together and you've got a common vision, it's so much easier to say, no, we won't do that. Yeah, we will do that. And you're a stronger voice when you have to advocate for what you're doing to others, as opposed to, it can feel very hard to change things on your own.
Hello and welcome back to Making Work Better, the show that reminds you it's time to stop fracking human resources and to make work humanly sustainable. I'm Denise Quinlan, and in today's episode we look at an employee-owned global engineering consultancy that's committed to being future fit. I'm joined by Kristy Matthews and Chloe Stewart-Tyson from Beca, and we talk about hybrid work, attracting hard-to-find talent, psychological safety, and why empowerment can't be mandated. It has to be owned. Beca is an organisation whose people are attracted by and driven by learning. Listen to how Beca is using social learning to build inclusion and belonging. We recorded this conversation for the Making Work Better research project at the end of 2023, so it's been edited to remove some dated material, and I'm going to say, please excuse our references to COVID in there. I started by asking Kristy about the challenges facing Beca and their sector.
They're quite broad, but attracting niche and hard to find skills and talent for the future. Yeah. So we have a real challenge in growing through schools, getting students through STEM, if you like, into some of our technical disciplines such as engineering. And when I say, I mean, we still get, we've managed to recruit, we take a huge number of graduates every year, but that future fit talent, for example, women, Māori, Pacifica, some of those groups of students are really hard to find.
Yeah. And then, so that's the attraction piece.
Mm-hmm.
What
and
about
retaining?
Yeah, and
so
retaining.
My second point. My second bullet point was retaining key talent at specific career points, though. So, for us, it's at certain points in our what we have career levels. We're a progression organisation, obviously being at professional services, and it's at certain points in the career that we find it hard to retain specific skill sets. So. So retention overall in our business is good. In fact, we're employee owned. That helps. Yeah. There is many good things. It's that that 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5, maybe 2 to 5 years in the career where we know that globally, not just in our sector, people are quite mobile, and that's the opportunity to, sort of try things out.
Are there later career points as well where people are more mobile or likely to leave?
To be honest, in our situation, I mean, yes, but not as magnified. It's more at that level, and specifically women at the, if we look at then target further in terms of demographics, at the we call it senior professional, which is just a little up on that 3 to 5 years. It's maybe 6 or 7 years, or maybe slightly, and that's a well-known trend in our industry in New Zealand, in architecture and engineering. A large number of women will leave the actual industry at that stage. Some of it may be, family status or other decisions, but often it's to go into a different industry.
I'm really interested, Kristy, by your comment about trying to recruit future fit talent. What does that mean for you at Beca, and why?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of things. The areas that we work in, for example, sustainability and digital are big areas that we work in terms of leading that, in terms of how we build buildings sustainably, how we help our clients reduce carbon in their projects and how they work. And so if I think about those two areas, they're hot skills, but they're evolving. And so we're having to develop our people, and internally we've got lots of great experts, but they're also having to develop each other and peers in that space, so we can build our business around that. And also we have to be mindful of what we're bringing in to meet the future need. So there's that avenue, the skills piece, but there's also the just the demographic and the different female talent. It's very hard to, so we're able to attract. Retaining is probably our challenge. So we need to attract more to retain more, so that's a challenge. In New Zealand, Māori and Pacifica, population within, particularly within STEM, really, really hard to find, because there's not a lot of students studying and going through university doing those disciplines. So, we're doing work with schools and, but, there's so much we can do. And then we actually work with our industry on that, because it's an industry challenge. There's also an education challenge around that. And in our other parts of the business, like in Australia, for example, First Nations talent, very, very hard to find, attract, and hold on to.
And I'm curious because, I know here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, so for example, in Otago University, their med school for over a decade has had their Mirror on Society policy, which is about saying the doctors that we turn out in this country should reflect the people that they're looking after. And is it the same kind of philosophy?
That's our aspiration, absolutely. We should be reflective of who we're working for, which is our community and our clients and our community, because the outcome is building, making every day better for our communities.
I asked Kristy and Chloe about their strategic goals and the work they've been doing towards them.
Empowering our people is one of them, which is all about how we look and how we grow our potential. We're a learning, Chloe pointed out, we're a learning organisation. Learning and development is one of the reasons people join us for their learning and career development. It's also one of the reasons people go find something else, is learning and career development. So that is really important. The diversity of perspective and what we look like and who we are and who we serve, and helping people reach their potential through. And a large part of that is growing our leaders and building our leadership capability to ensure that they're open and curious and have a growth mindset, so that future fit talent that comes through is developed to their potential. So that's one area. And then there's an area that I think there's about 6 or 7 goals, but I think future fit business. So, and this is, Chloe can talk to this really well, because this is in sort of shaping a part of our business around this to help make sure that we are really enabling our people to do their job in a way that it makes it easier for them and that has a great people experience. So from our systems and our processes. So Chloe, you might want to touch on that one.
Yeah, and again, I think that comes back to the kind of the workplace and enabling people to kind of come to work and, bring their whole selves to work from that wellbeing perspective, but also, how do they work with teams and project teams to get the most innovative and creative kind of solutions for our clients, really? Because again, if they can do that, then that leads into, quite a few of our other kind of strategic goals, which is, creating positive legacies, because we're all about what can we do and how impactful can we be to the communities that we work in, and how can we create, different solutions to make sure that, as our communities can kind of grow and our clients benefit from it.
And it really is a sense of enabling. I mean, I'm just listening to the words that you're using around enabling and empowering and that flexibility. And what kind of changes and practices have you put in place to make that happen kind of on a daily basis?
I don't know whether we have made any changes. It's an interesting kind of, Kristy might have a different view, but I think as a professional services and we're employee owned, we've always had that empowerment and enablement. I think what we're trying to focus on from that future fit perspective is that as we grow as an organisation, how can we simplify some of our processes, internal processes, to enable our people to do, the best that they can do for our clients and have those kind of, those positive legacies and the impacts that we want them to do for the environment and the place that we all live, really.
One thing we have done is get a little bit more connected, because we the way we go about it, learning happens in every discipline. Like, there's so many different disciplines we deliver. Continued professional development is critical to our people. So what we've done is more coordinated or connected or integrated some of the core learning opportunities a bit more centrally. So we've tried to got a learning strategy, a vision of where we want to go, and we've started to work on implementing that. So it's more evolution, I would say, because as Chloe said, learning's kind of part
in
of
your
our
DNA.
So we're more doing, okay, how can we be, as we grow, how do we be a bit more connected, a bit more, what are we offering? Is it really going to help us be future fit? And then I would say from a D&I perspective, a belonging perspective, we've continued on the journey, but more raised voices and working with the business to raise voice at the business, working with our people to raise the voices of different networks, and so that we're getting more of that voice through our strategies and through hearing what they need. So our Rainbow Network, Pacifica Network, Neurodiversity Networks just started, and those sorts of initiatives.
I think we're seeing a shift in organisations that previously a lot of the work around supporting staff was on when things went wrong, the kind of the EAP, or and some of the benefits. Whereas now we're looking more deeply, I think, at how do we change the way we work to make it better. And that's where I think we come into, I'm really curious about the simplifying processes. Tell me more about that. Because it aligns with some amazing research that I've been following out of the US about reducing low-value work as a way of improving people's lives and preventing burnout. So.
We'd love to hear that research.
I'd love to see that. It is. I mean, it's about that. It's about the employee experience internally, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the numerous processes that grow in what's already a busy life and a busy world, and and how do you alleviate the things that you don't actually really need to do, and what doesn't add value, and can you remove things that don't add value? Like, a good question, are they going to cause harm if you remove them? And if they're not, then why have you got them in place? And it's quite often, I mean, we've been here, Becca's been here for 102, 103 years. So we've got some processes that we had when we were a smaller organisation, we've carried them on, but do we actually really need them anymore? And I think it's challenging yourselves to ask those questions and to really simplify what you can, because a good example is, Kristy talked about some of the learning, and we've had a focus on learning. So we've had some, health and safety type modules that we've just added to. And actually, when you strip them back and you go, I'm going to look at these with fresh eyes, you can reduce the content, you can reduce the repetition that you've got in various other modules, you can put it into some of the other learning that we've already got, which is probably more directed and where it should be sitting. So just, I suppose, looking at it from a different lens, then you automatically get some simplification. And in turn, I think there's statistics around the number of meetings that we're all in and the training that we all now need to attend, and, with the privacy laws and all of the different legislation that comes in. So how do you make that really simple for our people to go, do I prioritize this or this? Or if I've got to do this because it's a legal requirement, how can I do it really smartly and in a impactful for them, so they get the information, but also a non-impactful for the business in terms of distraction.
Processes get added to processes, and eventually you've got this dreadful, unstable, kind of awkward, unwieldy Lego construction that you go, if we were starting again today, what would we do?
Yeah.
How do you empower people? Because sometimes there's an issue of how do we empower people to feel they can point that out? And how do we give people time? Because sometimes we all go, oh yeah, that's a mess, but I haven't got time to look at that this week. How do you deal with that?
I think that's our challenge. That's our challenge that we're talking about right now. And one of the things I think, and Chloe, you'll have a view on this, is bringing people together and sort of feeling connected and like a collective, because I think it's very easy to think, oh, I do this bit and it's too hard to change that. But when you bring everyone together and you've got a common vision, it's so much easier to say, no, we won't do that. Yeah, we will do that. And you're a stronger voice when you have to advocate for what you're doing to others, as opposed to, it can feel very hard to change things on your own.
Yeah. And I actually, so the research that I was telling you about, it was published literally March 2020 into the black hole that was lockdowns and COVID. And so never really got the attention it deserves. And it's Erin Kelly and Phyllis Moen. And it was working with a Fortune 500 IT services company in the US. They worked with about 1,000 of them. And they called it the dual agenda. And the idea was, how can we reduce overload and overwhelm, but maintain productivity? And there was very little. The only training they gave was they trained managers to say to their people, to be able to engage with their staff, to remind them that they cared about them as human beings outside work and their lives outside work. And I kind of think, I think here in New Zealand, most of our leaders can actually manage that without additional training. But otherwise, it was bringing them together and really empowering their teams to go, what's the stuff we don't need to do? And the expression that I always use now is when I heard from a mining safety review, it's empowering your frontline experts, because they're the ones who know which stuff they're doing that isn't adding value and isn't. Yeah. And so it's all the stuff you're describing that you're doing at Beca. It was giving them more autonomy about the when, where, and how they do their work, focusing more on what are the outcomes we need rather than the requirements along the way. What are the changes that you're most proud of, that have had the most significant impact, and that you're getting the best feedback about? Any of those?
I can say some and you'll have some, Chloe.
Yeah, perfect.
I actually think one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I don't even know if the team would, there's lots of things, but we had a focus on streamlining our graduate recruitment process, and that's resulted in a near 50% increase in our annual intake of grads. So we've just it's been hard, but we've been able to increase our graduate intake. And we've reduced our time to hire by 30 days. So I think, there was definitely, in terms of simplification.
I love it. It's a brilliant example. Yeah.
It seems, if I compare that, I'm sure there's other best practice or more better practice, but that, and then the other thing that I'm really proud of for the team was that we maintained the candidate engagement, because we measure candidate experience as well as first impressions once you get on board and right through. And we managed to keep that satisfaction with the recruitment process at 98%. So, that was bringing people who'd been also in our business, hiring managers have been doing this for a long time, on the journey. We need to be quicker. You can't sit on things. This talent will not wait. They've got offers And actually the ones we want, they've got many offers, and it's not just about grades anymore. So trying to there's a lot to do still, but that's probably one I would say pretty proud of.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've continued to maintain, I think, a really good wellbeing program, and keep up to date and competitive with what's happening in the, well, competitive's the wrong word, but keep up to date with what's happening in the market and in the real world, if that makes sense. One thing I'm really proud of is our people are still in a really safe psychological environment where they're happy to tell their stories. So whether it's a story about, an illness or a mental health, illness, or whether it's around miscarriage and loss or menopause in the workplace or, men's health, whatever it is, we've done some great podcasts with our teams who just literally go, I'd like to kind of record this, because I think that peer learning and sharing stories is really powerful, and hearing your own colleagues do it. I think it's awesome.
So you have internal podcasts where people share their stories.
Yes. Yep.
And that's amazing, because I'm thinking about the different levels of psychological safety that we try and build, kind of belonging and inclusion, learning and contribution. And it sounds like you drive off the commitment that most of the people who come to you have to learn. And if you really care about learning, you care about sharing your experience so others can learn.
Absolutely. We talk about social learning a lot. So through our learning strategy, we've moved away from, because it used to be we're only learning if we're in face-to-face and having a conference. So we've really, pandemic kind of helped us move away from that. But one of the things we talk about is there's the content, and then there's the sharing, and the sharing of the stories is what brings content to life and help that social learning. And then you get the reinforcement afterwards, or the application on the job. So the sharing and the social learning is, we talk about having learning labs. Chloe's team run podcasts. Everyone can access something. There's something there for everyone. It's about getting out there and accessing it.
It's brave, though. What that means is that it's so much more real and vibrant learning for me if I'm not just learning about a topic, whether it's, loss or menopause. I'm hearing one of my colleagues, probably one of my more senior colleagues, talking about it and sharing their story and making it very real. I think that's hugely, it's not just the learning transmission, it's the massive build of psychological safety that happens at the same time.
I'm just thinking about, Chloe, that example of one of our colleagues who lost his daughter and shared that story at our Monday morning management meeting. And the huge outpouring of support to care for that person was, and the support to what's the foundation, the Gumboot Friday,
Friday,
and then so that was massive. And then further along, I'm just bringing it internally, our PNC function, we had our Christmas party and thing. We did, instead of doing Secret Santa, we said, well, we'll choose, and the team came up with this, you get to choose a charity that you'd like to donate, and then your Secret Santa will choose of your three and donate. And again, you see that charity coming up, and just the impact, the ripple effect of that story is just, it's quite phenomenal.
It's far more, it's greater than you would ever get with.
It just keeps going.
With anything.
And there's everything that you want to have happening is there, because there is that vulnerability and sharing, there's connection, there's learning. It's a really powerful thing that you're doing. Yeah. Nice work. Now, I want to come back to the ESG, but let's bring that into the context of you are an owner, you're an employee-owned organization. What does that mean?
That means we're working with our shareholders.
Yeah. It means a third of our business are our shareholders, basically.
This
And
is really,
you don't get you buy into the business. You don't get given the shares. You buy into it. So you
So
do
you
have
commitment.
a commitment.
so a third of your people have bought in and own the business. So I know that the board of the shareholders are the people sitting beside me. Yeah. So what impact does that have on the way you work?
It does mean we have quite a lot of stakeholder engagement.
A lot of consultation.
Yeah.
And everyone's got an opinion.
Everyone's got an opinion and a voice. And you have to be very clever at managing that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think
But
about,
you get an amazing commitment from people, though.
I was going to say, that's the other side, isn't it, Chloe? You get when things are going to fly, they fly.
They fly. Yeah.
Yeah. When
if you've got people behind you, they'll 100%.
But what I'm thinking it must also mean is that there isn't a drive for profit at all cost, and to hell with the impact on the employees, because the shareholders are the employees.
Yeah, profit goes back to the employee. So yeah.
As a shareholder employee, I can't expect that we will all be flogged into the ground and know that it'll do me well, but actually I can see it's running my colleagues into the ground. Does it make for, we're talking about a shift at the moment with ESG from shareholder to stakeholder capitalism, being more aware of our responsibility to our staff, to our community. Do you think that being employee owned has made you already further down that track?
Yeah, definitely. I think we already had that. Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of grounding.
We get a lot of transparency around what's going, like how we're traveling. And I think we've got our board and our executive team are very good at engaging regularly. And I think over time, I don't know, Chloe, if you're sensing this, but over time, I think people, that transparency is definitely, I think that's changed for all big organisations. And in our type of organisation, the onus is even more so. And challenge too, because if people will say if they disagree or they're confused or they want something else. I mean, we do our employee survey, we get something like 84, 5, 6% participation, which in my years of doing them, that's phenomenal. Like in size, our big organisation, our size, and we get around 10,000 comments. Yeah, and those comments they're very, there are always your negative comments, but there's 10,000 people, and I think that's because people feel they can have their view. To Chloe's earlier point, they feel like they can have their say.
Yeah, because sometimes people don't participate if they think it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. So then the ownership is on us, and this is where I feel
to go back. Yeah,
I feel the weight is that you've asked for feedback. What do you do with it? And that's the bit that keeps kind of, what are we doing? Are we listening? We're listening, but what are we doing with it? We listen all the time. What are we doing with it? It's the kind of thing that
you've got to show the action and the follow up to maintain the engagement and to get the listening. And to basically get the feedback again.
And lastly, Kristy, you did mention, we talked about the ESG, and for some organizations, they're kind of coming late or reluctantly to this party. But like you say, it is at the core of what Beca does. You help people to be sustainable. So it is, that environmental sustainability piece is there. I think the other piece that really interests me is the human sustainability piece. And it sounds like, is that catching up with people's interest in sustainability, or is one still running ahead of the other?
I think actually a lot of our people see it hand in hand. The ones that the people who work in this space, like technically work in this space, I think they really see that connection. So Chloe and I work with a colleague of ours who's our sort of heads up sustainability, and one of the conversations we've had, driven by our new CE, is around how do we tell the story in a more connected manner. There's the environmental, but there's also the social, and how does that all connect up rather than sort of looking at these things in isolated areas. If I take the DEI and B, diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, perspective, which we incorporate wellbeing, right, Chloe? We connect on that piece there. I would say that there is a passion for that. There's a momentum behind it. Over the years, we've seen consecutively our people's perspective on whether we care about that topic increase. So we check on that. We have a diversity index within our cultural surveys, our engagement surveys. And so the belief that we care about it is, yes, we do. The expectations risen as well. And so one of the learnings that we've had is you can't rest. And we might think we're doing a lot, and we've done a lot and come a long way, but our people's expectation has actually increased. So we're just staring into, how do we continue to put the pedal down and carry on? And it's not everyone, obviously. You always have people that are more passionate about this, but in general, that's the sentiment. Is that we need to do more.
The norm has shifted. And I find this really encouraging, because this is about social change that's coming into business, driven by the people working in it.
Yeah.
This isn't top down.
Interesting. It's not top down. And we've just been having that conversation this morning around we need leadership to role model, and we need leadership to be on board. But and then we sort of go, well, how much? Like, there are some things, surely we actually have got influences that are not necessarily sitting in the hierarchy that will move this stuff forward. So I guess that's our little conundrum. How do we keep everyone aligned and keep moving forward without getting tied up in who needs to advocate first?
Yeah, that is because we're talking about empowerment, and there's an opportunity for mana. Mana can exist at any layer of an organization, and where do we allow leadership and thought leadership to come from? Really interesting.
From the people, all our affinity groups, people sort of say, how do you, and I heard someone say the other day, you've got all these affinity or employee groups, but you haven't got this one. Why will you create one? And it's like, they have all come from the people. So if you want one, we will help you. But I don't go around deciding which ones we will have. It has to come from the people. And I think that's, it was interesting, this conversation with a junior member who was almost quite heartened that, so I could just make that happen. Yeah. And then just putting them in touch with someone else who'd made it happen somewhere else. And it's a movement, not a, mandate. And I think that's the kind of message is empowerment's a movement. It's not mandated. You can't mandate empowerment.
Yeah. Take it. Yeah. And that's what you're encouraging, and that spirit is what you're fostering in your organization, which is really about empowerment, isn't it? Thank you so much, Kristy and Chloe, for joining me. What is really staying with me about Beca is the huge commitment to learning that is baked into your organization. The openness to sharing and the strong sense of empowerment across the organization. You are employee owned, and that really does change the DNA of an organisation. I'm really looking forward to watching how Beca continues to champion and lead sustainability. Thank you both. You've been listening to Making Work Better, recorded for RFM Dunedin. To learn more about how you can make work better for yourself, your team, or your workplace, keep listening to this series and go to nziwr.co.nz to download your free copy of the Making Work Better report. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate the podcast to help others who might benefit from it find it more easily.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.